Good evening. Welcome to Say No More Xenomorph, our weekly recap show of the Disney FX Hulu TV series Alien Earth, the prequel series, the midquel series of Alien Earth. Last week, I thought we'd hit a point where there's maybe some promise in the show. Episode 4 was not good, but it was not nearly as bad as previous entries. This week, episode 5, which is titled In Space, No One, ... is 97 plus steps backward in the narrative and quality, I might add, at least in my not so humble opinion. But before we get to that, I would like to share with our audience a public service announcement from Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. You're not going to want to miss this one, folks, because it ties directly into the content, the character of what we're going to discuss tonight. So without further ado, Mr. Kennedy.
Mr. President, this is a photograph
Oh, we lost it.
of the alien from the movie Alien.
Oh, hold on a second. You can at least listen to it.
This is what you could end up looking like if you eat some of the raw frozen shrimp being sent to the United States by other countries. Now, let me tell you what I'm talking about. In late August, the FDA found that raw frozen shrimp from Indonesia was being sold in Walmart. Specifically in Walmart stores in Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Missouri, Mississippi, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Texas, and West Virginia. It was being sold under the Walmart label called the Great Value label.
Is that what that's?
If
that's
you eat it, how could you end up looking like the alien in the Alien? Because the shrimp was radioactive. I kid you not. It had a radioactive isotope in it called cesium-137.
Cesium.
It'll kill you.
Cesium.
Even if it doesn't turn you into the alien, if you eat this stuff, I guarantee you'll grow an extra ear.
Democracy in action, ladies and gentlemen.
Only 100 senators.
Wait, there's more
representing America.
Oh, people
America's
can check it out. When I saw that, I thought it was a Photoshop. I literally thought it. I'm like, oh, I've got to. And then I hit, the internet, and I looked, and I'm like, oh no, this is legit. I'm like, they've actually presented a picture of a chest burster on a government. I'm like, comedic writers and satirists and all of those, and they're kicking themselves going, how do you beat that?
You don't. Well, you beat it by making programming like Alien Earth. Now, I was also sent this by my friend Bill, who may be watching. Well, probably not now because no one's watching right now. Give it time. But I said the only way, the way that this series, the Alien franchise, can get back into my good graces is if there's a future film in which it's discovered that the alien species, the xenomorphs, actually come from a planet called cesium-137. I will forgive Romulus, Resurrection, everything, if that can be. That's my new dream in life, is to see that on a screen. So we're going to get into episode 5, which, as several people predicted, is a flashback episode to the fate of the ill-fated Maginot, the origin of how that ship became to be sabotaged during its deep space mission to retrieve 5 alien species from the deepest, darkest parts of the galaxy. and what led it hurtling towards planet Earth, as we saw kind of teased in the first episode of this series. But before we get to that, we're going to do the introduction of Earth's Mightiest Critics. I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Jeff York of the Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists, David Fowley of Keeping It Real, and Mark the Movie Man Krawczyk of Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room Podcast. Welcome, everyone. Shortly, we should be joined by the blonde in front herself. She is making her way over from the shuttle bay right now. But gang, is it just me? Am I taking the proverbial crazy pills? Is this show getting worse? It feels almost like a dare. I feel like this episode should have been the pilot, but in order to do that, you'd have to tighten the script and recast 99% of the on-screen talent. And I use that in quotation marks. This is bleak, especially for something that's branded Alien. Jeff, I want to throw to you first.
Well, it's interesting because if you're looking at it from purely a storytelling standpoint, how does this flashback episode, where we've already seen and know the fate of all these characters except for Morrow, and we know that he gets off of the ship and crash lands with the specimens, what is the narrative point of it? It could be, I think you could argue, maybe aesthetically, to reconfigure our take on Morrow. He seems to be more of a hero after this, where I think before he was sort of being set up as the villain. But there's only really two things narratively that are advanced in this storytelling, and that's where I get mad at it mostly. And that is that one is we see that there was a direct saboteur trying to crash the ship, and we know who was behind it. And of course, surprise, surprise, it's Boy Cavalier who wants the species to sort of steal them from Yutani Corporation and be able to then sort of have the lord the power over the other four corporations ruling the world. And that's it. The rest is a lot of, I think, Noah Hawley's, dare I say, Rich Little performance, where he's imitating the best of Alien and some of the direct kinds of shots and bits, just like he did in the very first pilot episode. And I'm not sure that really contributes much. In fact, if anything, I think it detracts from the forward momentum that we had going the last 4 weeks with these younger characters that we're supposed to be invested in, who make no appearance here other than Boy Cavalier. And I think, if anything, it just frustrates me as an Alien fan, as well as somebody who is a fan of good storytelling, in that it wastes time. It goes back to something that, to your point, could have been the first episode, or at least woven into that for the first half hour of that show. A lot of time is wasted here on characters we do not care about. There's no reason to invest in them. We're asked to sympathize with characters who are ludicrous on the face of it. And I think left scratching our heads like, okay, so you've got a 65-year mission to go out and retrieve all these species. I'd like to see how that happened, because you can't keep any of them under your guidance and control once you're in the ship. You have containers that don't close. You have storage areas that aren't locked. You have people who eat food and lunch while they're doing microscopic work. You have people who say, I'm going to take a tick out of this dead man already, who's basically lost, even though, his cavity is open and somehow nobody's wearing scrubs or anything that would be, I'm sorry, but infection doesn't change in the future. In space, they can hear you scream if you're infected. Then he endangers everybody else in the room, and sure enough, there's some sort of weird gas that one of the leeches unleashes and kills people. They're dumb people. They're just, you wonder, this is the best and brightest. These are the people who they volunteer. These are the people who, Yutani is, as one of the heads of the world, thinks are the best and brightest to handle this mission. I didn't see any of them worthy of really sort of sympathizing with, or even believing that they could possibly pull off this expedition, let alone hold my interest for this when they're all goners anyway. So what does it matter how one person almost made it, or one person sort of froze in her responsibilities, or another person was going to drink from the container over and over again. Wait, oh, it's not her who's drinking. It's the Malachite, I guess, the apprentice, who is an idiot, and I don't know how he got the job, because he didn't seem like he could form a decent, coherent sentence. But
well, his gimmick is that he doesn't understand basic words.
Yeah, right.
Which is really, it's hilarious. But this is unfortunately not a workplace comedy. But I had, not to cut in, Jeff, but
no, please.
In this episode, in this episode, Morrow wakes up on the Maginot. He's being revived, mid-mission, because a lot of things have gone wrong. The captain, Bronsky, and then one of the other crew members have been, face hugged. The captain's dead because they tried to operate on it, and it, basically killed him. And as he's being revived, the kid who's doing it, who's not the apprentice engineer, it's this other little twerp. He's just kind of like, whoa, the captain's dead. That's crazy, right? And then they go into this room where the rest of the crew is there to kind of brief him, and they're all kind of quippy and casual, and it's like they're complaining about the boss not buying the right kind of copier paper. I mean, I expected Michael Scott to walk in a Maginot uniform.
One person standing on ceremony about, you're in your underwear. Another person standing on ceremony about, you're eating while we're having this meeting, but he's eating even though people are dead. So it's just another day at the office.
Yeah. It really is bizarre. And at first I wondered, I had to recalibrate, where I was in the timeline, because I'm like, oh, that's right, these are all children in adult bodies. I'm like, oh no, that hasn't happened yet. These are just supposed to be adults, spacefaring adults. Katie, welcome. This is your debut here, I think, on Say No More Xenomorph.
Yes, sorry I am late, but yeah, after watching this one, I definitely want to talk about it, because I feel like I have to apologize to the crew from Alien Covenant, who I have very publicly said are the most idiotic crew in space ever, let alone in the Alien franchise. And it's like, well, shut my mouth, because now we have this one. And it's like, wow. I mean, you guys all nailed it. Especially, I mean, the woman who's in the lab with the animals. I can't even say animals, creatures. Mm-hmm. The fact that she is just constantly eating. I'm like, girl, what are you doing? You had a dead rat next to your sandwich. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness you didn't mix up the gloves when you're like holding, because I was just waiting for that to happen. And it probably could have, probably more than once, but I got to give it to this episode, because Xenomorphs have I feel like in the history of celluloid are just one of the most, I mean, they say it with Weyland Yutani, back of my hat has a Weyland Yutani.
Oh, nice.
Look at that. I know, right? That they're one of the most perfect beings, creatures with like the acid blood, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And they're so, I mean, the fear just permeates through your entire body and all that stuff. And then you see like the tick creatures and the eyeball thing. And it's like, well, damn, hold my beer. Jesus, what else is in these cubes that we don't see? It's like,
there's one species that we haven't seen at all, and then there's the plant thing which hasn't hatched yet.
Yeah, so, and yeah. I gotta say that little eye thing has become one of my new favorite creatures, because damn, it is small yet it be mighty. Because even when it's inside the person and it's like taking on the xenomorph, then when it gets out, it's still like is doing like ninja backflips and like
it's very much like Spider-Man webbing. And yeah, I like when it was in the glass container trying to rock itself back and forth to get the glass to fall out. I mean, there was some cool stuff in this episode, but it's like maybe 2 minutes of ideas in a show that's an hour and 4 minutes long. That doesn't quite cut it. So Katie, just briefly, because I kind of we opened the show, and you'll have to go back and watch it on the replay with a Senate floor presentation by Louisiana representative talking about how Walmart shrimp may just turn you into a xenomorph. That happened yesterday.
Like legitimately.
But I also opened the show.
This timeline really got messed up somehow. Can we go back in the time machine and figure out who stepped on the moth or something?
No, it wasn't the moth. I blame Steve Rogers going back just so that he could be with his loved one. That's why everything in the timeline screwed up.
Nothing's been the same since Endgame. Yeah.
Maybe 2020. It just did start. You're right. It did start after Endgame. So maybe 2020 something happened. It's like, let's fix it. It just made it worse. I don't know.
But after that intro, I said the show has been getting progressively worse with a little bit of hope last week, but then this is possibly the worst episode that we've had. Have you been, since we haven't really talked about it, and certainly not here on the live stream, have you been enjoying the series so far, or have you been kind of like, oh, this is not that good, or where do you fall on this?
I've been enjoying it. Okay. I do like Kyle Chandler, and I like the whole Lost Boys, kids, all that stuff.
Kyle Chandler's daughter?
Yes. Sorry, Sydney Chandler.
I like Kyle Chandler too.
Yes.
He's in the Xenomorph suit.
Yes. And I liked when the Xenomorph basically killed all the rich people in the building. And that was that glorious, little display of blood and stuff everywhere. And I do like the guy who is a cyborg, yet you kind of get his the exposition in this one, which it's like, okay. And it's very interesting, like watching where he's coming from. And then I kind of did a rewatch of episode 1 to see like how the whole crew is awake and then they go to sleep. And then you see the island, and it's like, it's interesting how the island that's in his dreams, or that we see with his daughter, looks so much like the island where all the lost kids are and stuff like that. And it's been 60 something years. So are those possibly the same places? I don't know. It's also very interesting to see that he's, not a full robot, but he's a human who had a daughter who had a heart, and yet it was, destroyed. And to see like even the chief engineer talking about how that's how they get you. They want you, hey, it's only 65 years of your life. You think you're going to go back, but everyone's dead. Everyone's gone, or they're going to be so might as well go on another mission. It's like, what are you going to spend your money on? Nothing, because you're just going to keep going on missions and missions. And that's how they do it.
That was part of the 2 minutes that I liked in this episode.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the senior engineer and Morrow, and that's about it. One thing I want to say about the beach, I don't think it would be the same beach because Morrow was a tool of the Weyland Yutani Corporation. The beach is on Prodigy. The main beach is on Prodigy Island. I don't think they would have had any connection because Prodigy didn't exist. They are only 60 years old as a company.
Yeah.
And so they would have been out in space long before that, which also brings up another kind of strange narrative problem, which we'll get to in terms of the space transmission that's intercepted a little before this episode ends. But before we get to that, Mark, what do you make of Alien Earth Episode 5, In Space No One ...
It's what we predicted last week, what it was. When you told us what the title was, we're like, I bet you it's and sure enough, it is. So that wasn't a surprise. I did like a little bit learning more about the creatures that they caught, the specimens, seeing their behavior. I liked that part, but it's not called Creature Earth. This is Alien Earth.
They are aliens, Mark.
They are aliens. That's true. Okay, so this is true. They are alien creatures. But the Xenomorph, give it some shadow, please, because Xenomorph in bright light is not threatening. I mean, it is, but it not nearly as intimidating as when you at least throw a little shadow on it. They had those shots where it was in bright, full light, and I'm like, put it in some shadow, please, because it was scarier in the shadow. It still looks cool. but I didn't feel that, at least with this Xenomorph in the light. It's like, oh,
Well, I want to build on that for a second, because I
Yeah.
think it's a combination of the lighting. I mean, these things have always been most effective in shadow and dripping with goo and coming out of the crevices, right? Blending into the ship. So seeing it full on, even though it is a person in a suit for part of it, it's not intimidating, but it's also not intimidating because, as we've seen throughout this entire series, it doesn't act like we've seen Xenomorphs act previously.
right.
The scene where it confronts the kind of the default captain after the surgery scene, and she's freaking out, and all of a sudden the thing rises up and it's standing tall in front of her. In other alien encounters, that thing doesn't wrestle. It attacks. It strikes with its tail, does the
Its
inner
mouth.
jaw thing, right? It's fierce. It's quick. It just gets it all out of the way. This thing, it like trips her up with its tail,
Yeah.
giving her time to get up and run down a corridor. And the alien vision, as it, quote unquote vision, the POV, as it pursues her down the hall, is moving at like 200 miles an hour. And she's running at like 50 miles an hour. And yet every time we cut between those two POVs, she's somehow like 400 miles ahead of it. It doesn't make any sense. It's just set up so that we can have a quote unquote chase scene, regardless of whether or not it makes any sense.
So I mean, you have the holes of, okay, where does this fall in line with the rest of the timeline when we're introduced to this crew where they were all having their alien dinner moment around a table, and when did that happen? Because this one, they're waking up the captain and that's dead now, and you're like, well wait. And in the opening, it was implied that there wasn't that much time between that dinner scene and when the ship was crashing. So you've got that. You've got the question of, how does our boy Wonder, the smart kid, even know about this? Because it's 65 years they've been out there, and there's no way he's even close to 65 years old.
Well, that's, and we can kind of jump to that real quick, and
Yeah.
I'll just kind of plant the seed. And we can get into it a bit later. But yeah, Boy Cavalier is probably, I would say, generously in his 20s. He's a genius. He's the world's youngest trillionaire, right? He somehow is able to get a deep space transmission out to a Weyland Yutani, a rival company's vessel, and orchestrate a sabotage to bring back these specimens. Now, Weyland Yutani, how did they not intercept this message? How are they not aware of it? I assume this is a top secret research vessel. So to your point, Mark, how does he even know? This episode, it would have been cool, like I said, as an opening episode, but you have to do a lot of rewrites because it doesn't make any sense unless the last episode of this series is just going to be someone literally flipping through all the plot holes of the script and like answering our question.
Well, and not only that, but it's like, okay, maybe he knew about the mission on 65 years because he hacked whatever. But how did he know who to contact where on the ship, when to coordinate him?
And if they'd be awake, because they spend most of it in cryosleep.
That whole, gotcha, because that's the big reveal. That whole moment made even less sense. And for me, what bugged me about this is an episode like this fits into your 20 episode season. You get an episode like this. When you have 8 episodes, and other streaming shows have done this, even Mandalorian, and was it Obi-Wan? You have an episode completely dedicated to not your subject, but you only got 6 or 8 episodes to tell your whole story. So why are we spending time on this, especially when it's not adding anything? You could predict most of the stuff that happened on the ship we knew happened already. Could have peppered this in as flashbacks. This is a completely wasted episode that only has the 1-minute scene at the end where you realize he's recounting everything to Weyland Yutani. That's what this whole episode is his recounting of it to Weyland Yutani. But that's it.
Well, guys, take this too. Not only would Boy Cavalier not be able to sort of get in there or predict these things or know these things, especially if it's top secret, but he's willing to sabotage the entire thing, including the specimens, by letting the ship crash. I mean, that's his brilliant, he's the smartest man on the planet scheme. There's got to be a better way to get those things down and get them in your possession. I don't know, maybe after they've landed, but I mean, for him to risk all that, that's his big plan. It's ludicrous on the face of it. I think a good story editor would have looked at that and said, Mr. Hawley, go back to the typewriter and think beyond what a 12-year-old thinks is cool.
Yeah, I mean, a way to play it is
cool.
he's got this plan to, buy off the person who's going to give him the specimen somehow, but then the ship is in danger of crashing, and somehow it ends up in his favor anyway. But yeah, legitimately, because as they describe it, the ship has become a missile, and then the missile has become an arrow. I would have thought that would be the reverse of it. I don't know.
You want to endanger your land where you're living and all the stuff that's part of your world. You're willing to risk not only the creatures on board, but the very world, your domain. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, Katie, Dave. Before we get to you, Katie, you look like you wanted to say something.
Oh, go to Dave because now I forgot it. I had and I completely blanked now. So, right. David, what do you think? Yeah,
it's probably because of the friend who's sitting in your lap.
I know.
It is a cool, yeah.
I have no, maybe it's because I've had no expectations about this show. I've been enjoying it. I don't recall any Alien movie that had a whip smart, best of the best crew on it.
The first and the second, sir.
No.
Yeah. The first movie, they were all very smart.
I would say,
people.
okay, I'd say maybe the second. Because they were trained military and they were assigned a certain task, sure.
Yeah.
But they were still arrogant and in over their head, most of them. And, that's why they were, basically fighting themselves into a corner.
Okay, but here's the thing. They weren't making, with a couple of exceptions, they weren't making blatantly stupid decisions. The first Alien... These were all specialists in their fields going out and performing a specific task. They got diverted to go to this planet, which was not really in their purview, but they didn't really do stupid, boneheaded things.
Expertise either.
Right. But what I'm saying is, in this show, as exemplified, we've already talked about it, you have people who are allegedly very good at their jobs and qualified enough in their fields to be called upon to do those tasks on this mission, who are doing things that are completely boneheaded. The scientist in the you're throwing down a gauntlet here. I need you to give me specific examples here of boneheaded mistakes.
Same thing about the scientist from Prometheus.
I'm not talking about Prometheus. When I say the first two movies, I'm talking about Alien and Aliens.
Sure, right. But even those guys, basically a lot of them were just like space truckers. Okay.
But engineers. David, you're not understanding what I'm saying. I don't care what their job is. I'm saying they weren't doing stupid things. They were performing as realistically as possible in that given situation. This show is being deliberately written to put people in situations that the Nostromo crew would not have acted the way that this crew in the Maginot is acting. The whole thing with the lady in the science lab, with her sandwich, sitting right next to a dead rat, sitting next to a container she's dealing with specimens, any kind of biohazard or safety protocols in place. She forgot to screw the safety cap on the top.
And she's that sloppy.
Yeah. What I'm saying is the crew of the Nostromo, I can't think of anything they did that was boneheaded. Sorry.
Well, here's a thought for the room. Even if you want to say, David, that all of them are supposed to be experts, and as soon as hell breaks loose, they all panic and turn into idiots. All right, we've seen that in 7 films. Let's do something different here. Let's have people who are on a 65-year mission for one of the top countries, if you will, countries, whatever you want to call them in the world, and have somebody act like they know their job. But the number 2 in charge stands around frozen most of the show. The 2 scientists, including the Dr. Rahim, sit there and act like complete imbeciles when they're supposed to be prepared for disasters all the time in that kind of profession. I mean, I'm not asking for, everybody to have efficiencies here like, they're Sherlock Holmes or something, but can we have one person who doesn't act like a 12-year-old? Is that the joke here, that they're as bad as the 12-year-olds in the human bodies?
I think the difference is like with Alien, we were, because of the very first movie, we were as in the dark and clueless as the crew because it was the first
Yes.
one. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Granted. Cool. With this, and I mean, everything after the second movie, we were pretty much all in the know of what could possibly happen.
Mhm.
You know, the thing lands on a prison planet. And, you know, everything else. You know, we kind of get an idea of what's going to happen.
Oh, sorry. I think I froze or someone froze.
Dave
No.
froze.
I think Dave
froze.
froze.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. All right.
They
Dave,
don't want Dave to
I
give
mean,
his opinion. No, just kidding.
Well,
You
and-
froze there, Dave. I think you're
Sorry.
back.
Are you back? I can't tell. This is weird.
You still froze.
No, he's not.
Okay, David,
I mean,
if
I
you
know
can
if
hear us
David-
and you come back, wave your hand so we can know, because I can't tell if you're just listening or
No,
not.
I get what David's saying, David, and the decisions by this crew didn't quite bug me. One, because we've seen it for others, and I get what he's saying is the audience is in the know because we've been with these creatures, especially the Xenomorph, for so long. Not the other aliens, but the Xenomorph. So it may seem familiar, and I can see where it didn't bug him. It didn't really bug me either, but I put it in the context of, yes, these people were put on this mission to collect things. I get that, but I didn't actually, the way they set it up, and they do it clumsily, but I think what is kind of implied in this, because they're supposed to be away for 65 years from Earth, they didn't exactly get the best and the brightest. They got the people who knew something enough and were willing to give up basically their entire lives to go on this mission. So I got the impression, it's not presented, but it's kind of hinted at with like the electrician, the repairman, and even with Morrow and some, with his character in some respects, in that these folks, they got the people who needed money or whatnot, and so they went on there. They didn't necessarily get the ones who were the best. And I'm not saying that should fault them, but I guess for me, their actions didn't really bug me too much.
This, Mark,
but-
and this is to David's point too. Okay, you're right, David. We've all seen this. We all know the tropes and what they're going to do. So that's acceptable 8 films in. I mean, I think part of the whole idea of continuing narrative, ongoing series, franchise, whatever you've got to keep the audience with something that's a little bit fresher and not just rewarding them for them going, oh, this is what always happens. Isn't this cool? No, it's not. It's not good storytelling. And I think after 8 and 30 plus years of this, I think
40.
we deserve a little bit more. To your point, Mark, yeah, maybe they're not the best and brightest. Well, then get the best and brightest. I mean, why can't we make this into a chess game rather than Jenga? Where as soon as one thing goes wrong, the whole game collapses. When maybe somebody smart goes like, okay, well, I didn't expect this to happen. Look, there's all these little leeches sucking the life out of this guy. I'm sorry, he's gone. We need to contain this room right now and stop the surgery. I think any doctor would say that in any situation. And it wasn't full on panic just yet then. But, they don't do that here. And I'm not saying that you can't have thrills and excitement. And we certainly tune into these things expecting a certain amount of acid and fury and violence. But I'm just thinking, as we're now watching 5, to your point, Mark, of only 8 episodes, and we're wasting an hour by going back to people who we know are going to die, why isn't there something presented that's a little bit more compelling intellectually, as opposed to just, well, they're all sitting ducks? I just don't find that interesting. Not 5 episodes in, when we could be spending more time with Curly, with Hirsch, and find out what their plan is. They've only got 3 episodes to make their play or show what they're doing. Do we really need to waste an hour time by just having the rug pulled underneath us and show us that, oh, you know what? Morrow's actually maybe the hero of this show. That's a nice thought. That's the only real surprise, I think, in this entire episode.
Well, I mean, I want to go back to Alien, because I think this is a key point and a key difference. The Alien, one of the things I think that made Alien so scary is it wasn't, I mean, this predates the kind of the slasher film era of dumb teenagers going into the woods and making stupid mistakes that get their head lopped off or whatever. But one of the things I think was so great about Alien is These people were, again, smart, and they acted intelligently in the face of whatever problem they were trying to solve. When the chest burster hatches, they go out with nets because, as far as they know, it's just like this little shrimpy guy thing that they have to capture in a net.
Shrimpy.
Then it turns out, yes,
Shrimp.
yes, I did not mean for that. I did not mean for that to circle back to the beginning. I swear. Damn.
Sorry. I couldn't help it.
Radioactive.
The great value monster is I'll refer to him now. But no, the thing is, like, they go after this thing with a net, and then they realize, I think it was Brett encountered this thing hanging up from the chains, and it descends down, and it, slashes his head and all that stuff. And then they realize, oh, this thing has changed. It's now bigger. So they readjust their tactics in order to, try and combat the thing. What makes Alien so terrifying is these are very smart people doing their best to survive and realizing they're in an increasingly dire situation, but it's still not enough. And it's not because they're being outsmarted, they're being sort of out instincted by this creature that is just, it's all about survival and reproduction and killing anything that gets in its way.
Plus, they're being deceived by Ash.
Yeah.
Right. Plus, yes.
They have their own saboteur. Yeah.
Yeah, but they are not, they don't have any inkling of that. It's a great kind of third act reveal. So there's no goofiness. There's humor in the dinner scene, and that's pretty much about it, when they're kind of joking around about stuff. But the rest of the time, they're deadly serious. They understand the situation they're in. They're freaked out, and they're trying to do their best to survive. In this this TV show, this episode 5, there's a good 20, maybe 30 minutes of the episode where there is a xenomorph running around this giant ship, and people are still acting all casual. They're not like sealing off doors. There's the guy Tang, who is the creepy dude that everyone was kind of like sure was a cyborg or something like that. He was going to be the Ash character, right? Yeah. It turns out he's just a weirdo, and he's sitting there being interrogated by Morrow, and then Morrow gets up and leaves, and this guy's just sitting there in the interrogation room, not moving. He's just like sitting there staring at the wall. Doesn't even ask, like, can I go now? Why is he doing that? It's because there's an alien above him that's going to drip, slime on him and then attack him through the ceiling. That's the only reason he acts that way. The doctor who's in the lab, who all the creatures get out. The whole thing with the spores hatching into the water. She is such a terrible actress physically because she keeps grabbing, like unnaturally grabbing this thing of water. When you're trying to build suspense, she just should casually pick up the water and like bring it with her. Maybe so the audience doesn't even notice that she grabbed it.
I don't think that's the acting. That's the camera work.
No, I was paying attention to her movements. Like, why is she overacting the grabbing? She does it like twice in this. I'm like, see, there's something creepy about to happen. And that's the attitude towards this whole thing. On top of that, later on in the episode, our little eyeball creature jumps into the body of our lead engineer. The only other redeemable character on this vessel. I was sad to see him go, but it's kind of taken over his body, and he gets into a fight with the Xenomorph, which conceptually sounds kind of fun, except he takes a bite out of the Xenomorph. He still is in a human body, and yet at no point does his entire face melt off because he's bitten into this thing that has acid for blood. The show doesn't pay attention to its own mythology, its own writing within the context of the same episode. It's infuriating.
Well, I think with the biting, he was trying to bite him, but I don't think he ever actually broke the skin of it. It was trying. The eye creature was trying to attack it. The thing is with the whole.
Then
eye
why
thing,
did his teeth break off or something? I saw him like get.
Again, you're like you said. It's conceptually, it sounds cool. How they executed it, not so much. Also, there's a weird behavior with the eye thing because it called out as if it was calling the Xenomorph back to get the human, but then when the Xenomorph's in front of it, it decides to attack the Xenomorph. That part didn't make. I'm like, and they got my hopes up because I'm like, are we getting it to where the eye creature could actually control or call out the Xenomorph like a queen? Could we get a dynamic here of where the eye creature and the xenomorph, there's some kind of, simpatico type of thing going on? But no, it doesn't. Then they abandon
That's
it.
better than what we saw.
Huh?
That's better than what we saw.
It's implied for like 30 seconds. And then,
I'm wondering if they're actually trying to do something with that, because I think, again, in a better written show, that would have been a cool link for the viewer to say, oh, this reminds me of what Prodigy is trying to do with Wendy in terms of getting her to speak the alien language. Is there some kind of a universal monster language? Maybe it's not the same thing, but they can kind of understand each other. And if we can understand it or get our cyborgs or our synths to, then maybe we can control or wrangle or at least understand these things. That is a neat idea. Again, this is like it's a self-contained episode. So I don't know how anybody on Prodigy Island or Weyland, Yutani, everybody would know about what happened in that room. Because I don't even think Mora was there at that point.
Maybe they can hack the video that's on the ship.
No, but
even then,
because there's blind spots with the camera.
But,
Yeah.
but that would be the Alfred Hitchcock bomb under the table. You could have played that angle to where the eye creature, you find out on the ship, the eye creature has some control over the xenomorph. Next episode, they're experimenting with the eye creature. Eye creature manages to come out and it controls the xenomorph. You could have done it, but the humans didn't know that. And so then they play that angle of, oh crap, this isn't listening to me, it's listening to eye creature.
That's a great point about Hitchcock, Mark. That's also David's point. We have the benefit of knowing sort of what the shtick is, and then we watch these movies and, oh, don't do that. That's not going to be good, and all this kind of stuff. But I think after, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but 8 versions of this and how many books and comic books and whatever else, I wish these people were ahead of us a little bit more. I feel like we're always ahead of it, and we're rewarded for remembering the lowest common denominator parts of it, as opposed to being challenged to think of something smarter or better about it. I mean, I think the only challenging idea in this whole one is either is there some connection between these creatures and the sort of rethinking of how Morrow acts. But I mean, I also kept thinking, for all of this stuff that they're doing, which is a lot of repeating bits and shtick and Easter eggy kind of things again from the first movie or other points in the alien oeuvre, wouldn't have been an interesting thing. I'd like to know how these people got these creatures off the planet, because they can't contain them in an old science lab. I mean, and they've got the shittiest equipment. They've got all this stuff that can do all these things, but then they have video that has blind spots, and they can't, figure out who's been talking to who until you go super deep. Like, you can ask Mother anything, how long they're going to live, how long they can get back to Earth, but Mother can't say, yes, I found, we had an outside call from this guy named Boy Cavalier. Here's the playback of that. Or, hey, we've got this thermos here that, doesn't close properly, or this container unit that doesn't close properly. I'd like to know how these people found out where the creatures were and contained them to get them off the planet. That would have been much more interesting flashback episode.
Well, that's one of the things when I was rewatching episode 1 and they talked about the creatures and what's the most important thing, that the engineer said that there were a lot of good people who died getting these creatures. And my thing were like, I don't feel like that there were that many empty cryo tube things. So it's like, so how many people were supposed to be on that ship that didn't make it? And 2, I was trying to rewatch it, but did every one of the cryo tubes that were still asleep? Because I know they kept saying it's like, we got to wake up, we got to wake them up, we got to wake up the rest of the crew. It's like, we don't need 10 more people up here, like, doing this. I'm like, so there were 10 people that were supposed to be asleep, like, in those things. Like, did all those people die?
Yeah. There was 2 different pods, cryo pods of 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
so all of those people died. So my thing was like, well, then why don't you have the cryo passengers in the lab with the species? Because apparently that was the safest place to be in the ship or anywhere else if everything died and everything and then these are the 2 I made sure to write them down. 2, and I'm sure you guys talked about this, and I apologize, but I'm glad that apparently cats are still great in space. Because not only does Morrow bring it up, but then you see the kitty, and I was like, look at those little orange tabbies. Like, good for you guys keeping that species going. Like, who knows? Maybe they're all dead on Earth, and I don't. But I thought that was kind of interesting and weird.
Well, the one cat doesn't survive episode 2, right? Because the eyeball gets into it. Yeah. But
I mean, it's an interesting question, Katie. I think it ultimately becomes another Easter egg in Noah Hawley's Easter Bunny parade, because it's, you know, the cat doesn't exist too long, and he's there to be kind of a throwback to the cat from the first movie, and then he's kind of quickly, you know, hurt and ruined, and I don't know. Those are, to your point, those are the things they're focusing on here, is storytelling, as opposed to legitimate things that move the thing forward and not just recall the previous, you know, equities.
The only thing I can think of is if they had a larger crew, which I think they had to have, because this is a science vessel. It's going out in deep space for 65 years, and it's, you know, you're talking probably trillions or decatrillions of dollars for this thing. So I would imagine there are more chambers, more quarters for these, you know, people to live in. But my theory is they said we lost a lot of good people trying to get these things. I think they lost all the smart people. All the really competent people are the ones who died getting these species back. And it's just the the interns meant to fly it back. That's your workspace comedy. I do want to jump ahead really quick to something Mark had said earlier, because this bothered me, among other things. At the end of the episode, the very end, Morrow is in the Yutani compound, or Weyland Yutani, talking to Yutani, and it's basically like, okay, we're going to give you anything you need to go back and get these specimens. When did this conversation happen?
That's what the whole episode is. The whole episode is him recounting what happened to the ship to her.
That doesn't make any sense.
But that's what it is, because we cut at the very end to him standing in front of her and saying, and now I'm going to get them back, or whatever.
I know, but Mark, what you're missing what I'm saying. We already had that scene when he's talking to her on phone, Prodigy Island, and he's like, she's like, you don't have to get your specimens, come home. And he's like, I'm going to get these specimens. This is my life's work now. So again, when did this conversation happen? Because he went directly from that ship he was hiding out in Prodigy City and like making all these calls to the one kid that he stuck the thing on his neck, having all these clandestine conversations. So, but then all of a sudden he's teleported Bruce Wayne in Dark Knight Rises style over to Weyland Yutani Corp. How did he get there? If he did get there, I mean, it's pretty much implied that all of the transportation in and out of Prodigy Island is monitored. But then again, it's supposed to be a super surveillance state, because Weyland Yutani and Prodigy allegedly have cameras and listening devices and cyborgs that have direct link ups to the headquarters. So everything's being monitored, but nothing's being monitored. So I guess I'm just asking silly questions. But that last scene really bugged me, because I'm like, where and when did this happen? I think you're right, Mark. I just think that Noah Hawley forgot what was in his own damn TV show from 2 episodes ago.
I think Mark's right. I think that's when it happened. Like, once he got off the ship with the gun, he went straight to her to recap everything.
But how? And it doesn't make sense, because if that happened, and this is part of the flashback, then that means that later on, when he's in Prodigy City having that clandestine phone call with him, she's like, you can just come home now. It sucks what happened on the ship. And he's like, I'm going to get the alien species.
Well, he's not on the island at that point. He's on a city that's on the coast, I think, close to the island, but he's not on the island. He never actually got on the island. The town that he's in is not on the island.
Yes, it is, because the ship crash landed in Prodigy City, which is part of that whole like island compound. That's all one giant place.
No, the island compound where the kids are, and that is separate from the city where the ship crashed.
Okay. Okay. He is at least in this city where the thing crashed.
Yes. Yes.
Weyland, Yutani is nowhere near that place.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
They're in a separate country, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
So
you're
yes,
right
I
there.
misspoke.
Okay,
He's
yep.
not on the island, but he's still in the city.
Right.
So
You're
at
right.
what
Yeah.
point, if he's recounting this whole Maginot thing, again, when did that happen? Because according to the chronology of the show, the ship crash lands in the city. They go in to get these things. Morrow escapes, and he's on the lam going through the city, calling the other synth kid, from, sex club internet cafes and hatching his plan. And there's a redundant conversation there because during one of those calls or on the way to one of those calls, he has the call with Yutani and she's like, come home. The mission sucked, but you're okay. It's all right. And he's like, no, I'm going to go get these things. This is my life's mission now. If that's the case, and if this flashback episode is complete to what you're saying, then that means that at some point after the ship crashed, he teleported to Weyland Yutani headquarters and had a conversation where Yutani said, we're going to give you everything you need to go get these creatures. And he said, okay, I'll do it. So in the course of like 3 days, he has a phone call and an in-person meeting across 2 different continents to say the exact same thing in a conversation that wasn't, hey, no one said, hey, we just talked about this. What are you doing?
Well, is it supposed to be implied that Slightly's family also lives on the same city where the ship crashed? Because Morrow goes to her home and confronts her too. So I figured he was able to ship himself. I don't know. Maybe they do have the Star Trek stuff, like
teleporter,
like teleporting over that. That's what I
transporter.
It's
Being
the future. People are idiots. Still true. You can now teleport. Very cool. Cats are still relevant. Also awesome. And apparently, even though it's in the future, sexual harassment is still in the workplace as presented by Tang. Even though I thought he was a robot, which doesn't make sense to me, but I don't know. It's just weird.
Especially because people knew he was creeping on folks who were sleeping in the cryopods. And at no point was he arrested or reprimanded or whatever. There's like, oh, he's just kind of over there doing his thing.
Well, apparently he's reprimanded because Morrow says it's like we've talked about it and stuff like that, but yet he still like stands and stares.
Well, okay, yes, I guess I should say sanctioned. Okay,
yeah.
Like, we're gonna lock you up if you keep creeping on this lady. I don't know what your function is on this ship, but it can't be that important.
But he is just a creeper. He's not because I thought he was supposed to be like this ship's Ash.
He's a navigator.
Yeah.
So but he's not. He's just a creep.
He's a creepy navigator.
I mean, I'm not talking about the job side. I'm talking about his inner self, and it's just so that's just creeping weird. Okay.
I think his pickup line was like, "Hey, how'd you like to drink some Tang?"
Yeah.
Anyway, Jeff, what did you want to say?
I love your puns. I have to say, as we're sitting there talking about, once again, I think Mr. Hawley's inability to tell a cogent story. Or to emphasize the things that maybe should be emphasized and not create all these plot holes or questions in logic or, tracking kind of things that just are mind-boggling because they're major screenwriting mistakes. Here's my question sort of for the room, because we're all horror fans, which I think this probably succeeds at. I don't think it succeeds at sci-fi. I have yet to hear a big idea brought up into this show, and we're 5 episodes in. Now, you can talk about, well, is this how people live on forever by being put into robots? Great. Let's explore that. They've wasted an hour by not exploring that here. In fact, if anything, it shows that maybe Morrow, by having some cyborg capabilities, is a better, smarter human being. And maybe that's why we're doing the experiments with transporting people's minds into other bodies. I don't know. But I have to say, whether it's Star Trek, all of Star Trek, every episode of Star Trek, or some of the better science fiction, you're aware of the ideas that they're talking about. What is the idea about humanity? What is the idea? I mean, here it's like, okay, we're still greedy. We still have sexual harassment. Billionaires are still assholes. I don't know. I just wish there was more of a Harlan Ellison, Ray Bradbury, some sort of real thought to what this is, as opposed to well, we're kind of going down the old path of all those familiar tropes that we love from the Alien franchise, with a little bit of a different spin and different characters. But we have scientists and doctors who don't act like scientists and doctors because we need people to be stupid in this franchise. I just wish there was more to it. I think it feels like it's junk food. It's maybe, tasty junk food, pretty well produced. A lot of it's well acted, but I don't know where this is going. What's the idea here? And I think science fiction as a genre is driven by an idea.
Well, I mean, to your point, Jeff, and this is something I was getting at earlier, but I think you're going to help me articulate it a bit better. Imagine if this show was basically, what if the crew of the Next Generation Enterprise encountered a space vessel full of the deepest, darkest creatures from, the depths of space? How would they react? What would that be like? It would be a much smarter show with competent people who would still probably be up against it. I mean, in the episode from TNG, I think my favorite episode from that series was the first encounter with the Borg, when because of the hubris of this space vessel, like, we're going out here to explore. Everybody's basically the same. There are no more frontiers to conquer. And then Q, basically a space god, comes up to Jean-Luc Picard and says, "Oh, really?" And he flings the entire ship across the galaxy, where they encounter something that is completely alien, cannot be reasoned with or defeated, and it chases them and is about to overtake them until Picard says, "All right, I get it. We're not the top dog." And then they get snapped back.
Well,
and there's a very chilling, and there's a chilling coda to that episode, which is that Guinan, Whoopi Goldberg's character, the bartender, says, "My people did encounter these folks, thousands of years ago. And the problem is now they're aware of your existence and they're going to come after you." And that's not we defeated the alien. We won. It's like, oh no, what does this mean for the future? And I think that's what this show is in desperate need of.
Can I also chime in on that, just to defend and her sing hosannas for Star Trek and the Next Generation? But they also played with expectations too. So they worked on two levels. They were not only working on a science fiction idea driving the narrative of the show, but they even played cleverly with the tropes. And I think, dare I say, usurping audience expectations. You'll remember that the Borg was a 2-part episode, and at the end of the episode, Riker flexes his manly muscles in front of the competitive captain, played by Elizabeth Dennehy, and says, "Fire!" Like he's willing to put it at risk. And what do they start off the first episode of the next season? The Borg anticipated that, so they countered it. So even his biggest, ballsiest moment is like, we knew you were going to do that because that's what you would do. And boom, we're smart. I mean, it's a great, to be continued cliffhanger trope, and yet they take the wind out of it for a very logical, smart reasons, like the Borg would be smart enough to anticipate that. I just think that's working on a couple levels that I wish at least one level this show was working on, especially so many decades and executions in on this franchise.
Yeah. All right. We have a bunch of comments to get into, especially some at the very end, which I've got some thoughts on. But Sujiwa, who I think we're just going to have to start inviting on the show, because you queue up and you show up, sir. As predicted, we are back on the ship. So once I saw that I watched like 5 minutes of the show and then went and finished up my Apple TV shows, they have 3 good ones. Then I finished watching this up after having some homemade empanadas. Very good. Anyhow, the show was interesting. We learned some new things. Octopus monster likes humans. Yes.
Did you see that the engineer apprentice was basically eating a homemade empanada? It was pretty much like a Upper Peninsula pasty.
Yeah.
Yep. They were fighting over half a pie and a whole pie.
And it wasn't his first one either. So yeah.
It's destiny. It's simpatico. We'll have to see how the night evolves. May join for the discussion. The deal, Carvel.
What?
Okay. Are you having a stroke, Sajua? There's help. Okay, famous people joining the convo. Wow, 5 people today. Read the last scene. It happens in the present of the show after the events of the last episode. But it still doesn't make any sense. Because his plan was there's no indication that he abandoned his plan with the kid
Right.
going in to get the pods. So it's like, unless he's working a separate angle, there needed to be a connective scene there, because it's very confusing, especially throwing that in to the end of a flashback episode without establishing that we've circled back to past the events of the last time that we saw anybody. The ship crashed in the main area of the city, not the island comp. Yeah, we covered that.
Yeah.
He's super skilled, a security cyborg or whatever, with decades of experience. He can get in and out of spaces. In the real world, we have agents like that. Also, some of those agents are allowed to go in and out by authorities, track and gathering info by various authorities. Yes,
We
but
have cyborgs.
I think like super agents, like Bond types. But yes, that also gets into the idea of surveillance, and if there are people pulling the strings, we're way too far into the episode for these kinds of rug pulls, I think. We'll see more stuff from the ship, like more Maginot flashbacks. That would be, I wouldn't be surprised. That'll be the last episode, episode 7. They're gonna leave everything on a cliffhanger and flash back to what they had for lunch the day before the events of this episode. Once actors are assembled and as sets are built, a show would need to shoot a lot of stuff that takes place on the ship. Oh, yeah, that would justify them going back to it. 5th ep was probably the most interesting in relation to the previous 4 episodes. More is revealed about the cyborg security dude. Still a 7 out of 10 show. Not amazing.
7 out of 10 is pretty high.
That's generous to G1.
Yeah.
Very generous.
Yes.
I would say that is the only interesting thing, is you learn a little bit about Morrow, but the interesting stuff with him is all of maybe 5 minutes of this entire show.
So I watched a recap of somebody slowing down the letters that he's reading and like pausing.
Yeah.
And I get his daughter's name is Estelle. And it's interesting how obviously it's kind of like Interstellar, you know, he's getting these missives from his, you know, messages from, you know, his daughter that basically doesn't know him, you know, and so she's basically like, so what kind of power do you have on Yutani? Because well, I want to go to this Ivy League school, you know, the old world schools, but apparently I can get in with Yutani, but they're very restricted with what they teach. So it's kind of interesting, you know, that it gives him a motivation to continue to do what he's doing, but it's still, you know, that's the weird thing about this, you know, cryogenic 65-year job thing, is that you're never going to see these people. So why do they? I think it's almost cruel to like even have
humans on it,
communication from loved ones when you can never really know them or see them, and you know that they're going to die when you wake up, or they're probably dead.
But especially if the reason why he's going on this mission is so she can, you know, go to school and get the money so she can go to school, and then he gets a letter that she died at 19 in a house fire, and it's like, so you'll collect your belongings in 58 years. Bye.
Yeah.
Well, on top of that, unless there's like a significant signing bonus for going on this mission, they keep talking about how if they don't complete the mission, they don't get their shares. They don't get paid. So by the time they get back, she's going to be dead anyway, or at least a senior citizen. So like, where's the college money?
Yeah.
And on top of that,
Ripley's daughter too.
Right. And the only thing I think was kind of neat about this is that thing with Ripley's daughter. That was the deleted scene from Aliens.
Yeah.
Right.
That never, the fact that she had a family never came up in the movies, aside from that scene we didn't see. And I think it was a mistake to cut that, because that really drove home her relationship with Newt and what that meant. But they kind of took that deleted scene and built it into the structure of this Morrow character, which I thought was kind of cool. It's a direct flashback to something that's kind of an Easter egg for casual Alien fans. But David, to your point, if they put that information in the letter, the only part of the letter that really you can get a good look at if you're just watching the show is the bit where it says that she was 19 and died in a house fire.
Right.
The other stuff about her education, that you really do have to pause and go and read that. That is pure Easter egg stuff. And I can't count it as like mattering to the narrative.
Right.
Because like it doesn't matter.
See, and I would have rather them cut out maybe one of the cheesy Xenomorph segments that we already knew happened, and have her do a voiceover or something while he's reading the letters, so we know what was in it, because that is interesting, and that would put a little more perspective. But yeah, as he's flipping through the letters, you could barely catch that, and
We just hear that we'll meet
meet
again.
again.
No.
Hey! I'm not getting copyright struck for this show. All right. Junk food, but with some good sets, chill sci-fi vibes. It's sci-fi slow cinema. You are not going to let that one rest, sir.
He's not. He's going to keep pushing that idea.
All right. Some flaws: reusing the aliens for military use, etc. Plan that future already has amazing military tech. You can only kill things so much. I love that.
And to my earlier points, repetition that we don't need.
Yeah. Okay. Here's what I wanted to get to, because I want to see what folks think of this. The Fading Man says, I think Boy Cavalier is a reckless monster. Yes. He thinks he's smarter than everyone, but is just an entitled fool. The first Alien movie, the captain broke the quarantine rules and let an alien on board. He was an idiot. No, he did not. That was Science Officer Ash.
That's true.
Because the captain was out on the away team, and he was in that same situation, trying to get on board the ship. Right, because there's that scene where Ripley says to Ash, and you let it on board.
Yep.
And that was all. He wasn't an idiot. Ash was working for the company, and that's why they were out there in the first place, which we find out at the end
later
of the show.
on.
So, yes, Fading Man, I would say go back and watch Alien. Never need an excuse to, but yeah, that was just a little detail there. So, any closing thoughts on In Space? No, next week's episode called The Fly. So maybe in that one they learn how they reveal the teleporting technology that you were talking about, Katie.
Maybe.
Did you go through all the comments?
Did we? I thought so. Or did I miss?
No,
Oh my
there's still
gosh!
more.
Wait. Oh, there's the arrow. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's. Thank you for bringing that up, David. Again, StreamYard, and a terrible captain. So stupidity is not new to aliens. Okay. We also learned this episode. Sorry. What's that?
I said, true. Many stupid human beings have gone up against these aliens.
True. We also learned this episode that the ticks are a lot more dangerous than we thought before. Yes, that was. I like that development of them having releasing this toxic gas, but I couldn't appreciate it because I'm like, they are doing open chest surgery, as Jeff mentioned, on a guy who's practically dead already. They have no safety equipment on. They don't know what these things are, and the guy's just grabbing it with metal forceps, squeezing it, trying to get off.
Trying to rip it off. It was hilarious.
Like it's a leech out of the water in the old Western or something. It's like, oh, boy.
They keep referring to these things as ticks, but they have to know these aren't actual ticks. That's a human Earth context. These are aliens. Anyway, let's see. The aliens will be used to perfect human immortality at the end of the show. Not military tech, I think. Let's see. Or maybe they'll figure out how to transfer a human mind to an alien body. But that's again the problem with these prequel and midquel series is none of that can happen because we still have.
Yeah,
Jeff, you keep mentioning 7 movies.
Shows.
We're only 3 movies into this entire series. We still have the entire future to go through.
That's right.
Yes, he did. He told him to. I've watched it 100 times. The captain told Ripley to let them in. She wouldn't. Yes, but you said the captain let them onto the ship. He was an idiot. The captain made the order. Ripley overrode that, and Ash overrode her.
Right.
He shouldn't have asked. He knows the rules. Yes, but he was also panicking. So I can understand. And that is why you need that chain of command to say, no, you cannot let them on board. So that's why we have a chain of command, because people don't always act in the interest of the rules. So when you've got someone who's like, oh my God, we got to get this thing is on my friend. We got to get it inside. We have to operate or do whatever. And Ripley's like, no, you know this. We can't let it on board. And he's like, Ripley, let us in. And she's like, no. And then all of a sudden the door opens and it's Ash.
Yeah, because that's
it's also interesting because that's point.
No, that's one of the reasons why Ripley. I mean, even on the Nostromo, no one really likes Ripley. She is not she is not liked by the crew. No one. And then when Veronica Cartwright sees her, she tries to deck her and all this stuff. But see, you need to listen to the woman with the cat, because if you did, then everyone would have been alive. So
and
moral
even
of
in
the
that,
story.
They're also playing with they're playing with narrative tropes here. For starters, the Fading Man is onto something in the sense that Alien is at the core of it also a horror movie, and the monster is always invited in, so they let it
Right.
in. They're playing with that trope. The other thing, though, that Alien did well, that I don't think they've done particularly well here, though they tried a little bit with this episode, which is trying very hard to be like a good impersonation of that, and that is that we thought that Morrow was the bad guy in this, and he's
Right.
not. Just as Katie points out, in Alien, you think Sigourney Weaver is the bitch. She's the awful person, and she's actually the hero in it. And you think she's the nasty person, the mean person, all that cliche shit. And again, they're playing off of audience expectations there, which is clever writing. I'm not sure it's clever writing when we've seen Morrow become more and more of a human being for 4 episodes before this, that we didn't need a flashback episode to realize, oh, maybe he's actually the good guy in this story.
Well, and it, with Alien being horror, you are going to have stupidity, and I get what the Fading Man's also mentioning with it. Ash overriding it is the big thing with that hook, but here the stupidity is amplified. We talked about the lab lady. I would have bought if she would have just forgot to lock the eye creature, didn't notice the cage of the eye creature locked into place, and nothing else. Everything else she was careful, but just that one mistake. But she's eating in there. She's really not being careful with the ticks at all. She forgets to put the lid on the container. She doesn't notice that. She doesn't look at. I mean, the sheer volume of
the tick in the sandwich.
Yeah, the sheer volume of mistakes she makes within that one scene alone is overdone. I could give you one of those mistakes being human nature or her tired or whatever, but the fact she did all of those things in there so all of those could escape was a little too far for the stupidity level for a horror film.
You're right, Mark. And I just want to go back to that lab. The container that she was using, regardless of whether or not the lid was screwed on, which it wasn't, and she should have known better. The way that the lid opened up, it was that kind of like telescoping, razor door.
It's like a camera.
Right.
Yes. Lens.
Exactly. Like they had in that famous scene in Alien where Dallas goes into the tunnels with the torch. That was just a direct reference. Right. But they still don't know anything about these creatures. She's still trying to figure out their eating habits and all this other stuff. Having an open container just in a room where you're not wearing any kind of protective gear, she doesn't know if these things emit, microscopic spores into the air. So just by opening it up and, putting that rat in there, she could be exposing the entire lab to some, biohazard.
The way she does it so slowly too. I mean, she lowers it down so slow and then takes it back up, and then when she shuts it, it's like twist and then open hole and then shut. I'm like, that thing would have gotten out so many times with her feeding it, because I mean, we can obviously tell they're very intelligent. All of them are. I mean, the fact that even the eye creature's like, hey bitch, hey look behind you, hey.
Well, and she knows it. She knows that it's staring at her and following her. She knows that thing is smart. So why is she acting so stupid?
Enough of you. I'm gonna put you away. It's like, hey, no, behind you, hey. And it's like, see, it's like she's Jamie Kennedy in Scream. She's behind you, look behind you.
But you bring up an interesting point, Katie, because we know the xenomorphs are somewhat intelligent. I mean, at least they have more smarts than just base instinct. We know that the eyeball creature is smart. The tick, I mean, it undoes the latch on the container. And it's not like it's just like kind of like fumbling around and it accidentally let itself out. It knows. But you look at this thing and it's even lower than the xenomorph because it doesn't have any kind of like a face. It's just like a little wiggly thing with legs. So I like the idea of trying to communicate with these things that might have super intelligence. We just don't understand what that is with our limited human understanding.
Yeah.
If the show is
Maybe-
actually about that, and going back to my idea from last week, the week before, like if this show had been a monster of the week show where you focus on one of these species per episode and getting to understand it and what it can do and what it means for the quote unquote alien universe, I think it would have been much more interesting and give yourself some time to breathe. But this episode is just one long bad movie. It doesn't really have, I mean, it's got some cliffhangers, but it doesn't have that the breaks that you need to kind of follow all these stories along.
But I mean, that tick piss or tick jizz could have been a gift. We don't know.
I like tick fizz.
mean,
That's a great
It
phrase.
could have been like, hey, you here, I'm going to give this to you. This is a part of me. Now I'm giving it to you, and I hope you ingest it, and then we can become friends and become one. We
other
don't
words-
know. Maybe
in-
that's what it was intending. We don't know.
In other words,
wasn't
Katie,
actually.
in space, no one can hear you cream.
Yeah, exactly. Ew, gross.
That's Lalian. That's the show you're thinking of, Jeff.
But apparently, you can smoke in space, cigars and cigarettes, and have plenty for you're going to be there in 65 years. That blew me away. It's a dumb thing, but I'm like, what?
Yeah. Sierra says this world needs some epic driving reason for the core to mess with aliens and research, like the world is ending, meds are needed or something. Can't just be cash. They're rich already. Another interesting idea. And I feel like I can't remember the name of the guy, but back in last episode, he's the crisis of conscience guy who's the wife of boy's therapist. He's the one who's kind of bringing up these kind of moral dilemmas and problems. He's like my third favorite character on the show. Second now because one of them's dead. Sorry. Mark needs to run because I know we're over, and I appreciate the time, Mark. We'll catch you next week. But yeah, thank you.
Later.
All right. We are wrapping up, I swear. No, that idea is something I feel like he would say, and that'd be again an interesting idea to explore in the show. What do we need these things for? Why? Got to go to work. Take care. Hey, left just around the same time as Mark. Although this comes a little bit old. Okay, here's one. Jay Vasquez. I hope that's your real name and not just a reference to aliens, although that would be really cool. Boy, you guys are following the algorithm all right. All I'm hearing are complaints and nitpicks over an episode that has been so far considered the best of the series so far by the majority of viewers. Yeah, and we all know.
Well, that's the problem with television and audiences today, is passes for great television.
Right, and
it
I'm
isn't
also
great
saying
television.
that it is
And
always the
we've
case.
just gone through a litany for the hour of plot holes that usually are taken care of in a second or third draft. I don't know what's going on here. If they think Hawley walks on water, but imagine how much better this could be if it was smarter. I think what people are loving about this is the scares, and it's a monster show, and it's been a monster show that's been successful for 30 years. And this episode is the Rich Little of Vegas. It's doing all the greatest hits and a lot of callbacks and all that comfort stuff that we've talked about here. But I take umbrage at what Vasquez is saying, because I think we are lowering our standards for a lot of this kind of stuff. Yes, it's entertaining. We're not arguing about how entertaining it can be, but as critics, we have to look at it with a better eye than that. It can't just be, oh, it's just fluff, it's funny. No, sci-fi has to be smarter, and better screenwriting, basic screenwriting has to be smarter. I'm sorry, but he's completely wrong.
If I may interject on, though, one of the best things of this episode, the editing, I think the camera work, the editing of the scene where they spit the captain out into space, and the layering, I think, is gorgeous. That I actually rewatched that scene again and again. It's like that was really a beautiful editing, the way they layered that. So kudos to this episode for doing that. And I mean, the production design, everything, you know, obviously the bigger things going on, like it's top notch. I think it's great. And even the little, I mean, a lot of the CGI is like really, really good. But yeah, there are a lot of holes that don't make sense.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it, Katie, but like the whole thing with jettisoning the body, that reminded me of there's a scene in Alien where they got rid of the body. There's a scene in Alien 3 where they're having like the kind of the funeral for my gosh, was it Hicks.
Hicks.
Yeah, and well, no, not new. What am I thinking of? There's another scene. The whole trope of like jettisoning bodies and getting rid of them is something that we've seen in Alien before, so it makes sense that they would do it here, but I don't really consider it like special. The other thing is there's a blatant ripoff of Ridley Scott's Alien in this episode, which is fitting because that's how they opened the series, with the kind of like the 1.5 speed of the Nostromo waking up, complete with like the pods and the crossfades and the computers coming online. In this episode, it's when our two kind of grunt engineers are down in that gray bay, and it opens up with the one guy, the guy who ends up getting eaten by the ticks. He's very small against a giant gray wall with a huge spotlight behind him. And then you see the chain dangling down. That is a direct callback to the scene from Alien when Veronica Cartwright gets taken by the alien.
Oh,
Now, yes, and it's terrible. And I'll tell you why. And this is the drum that I'm going to keep beating until they stop doing these remakes and prequels, which is to say, I'll never stop talking about it because they're never going to do it. No, they're never going to stop. If you are to take this series, and future generations will likely do this, if you want to say, okay, I've never seen Alien before, I want to start at the beginning. Are you going to start at Alien, or are you going to start at the beginning of the story, which is Prometheus, Covenant, and then this show? If you watch episode 5 of this show, you see that shot, and then later, however much filler there is between this and 1979's Alien, you're going to get to that and be like, oh, they did this shot already. It's going to seem redundant. There's not going to be an appreciation for Ridley Scott doing it and doing it better with more intensity and purpose than a show that's ripping it off, but it technically, quote unquote, came first. And that's what's so frustrating about this. These people, in making these prequels, they're stealing ideas from stuff that came chronologically in the fictitious storyline later, but they're putting it, I'm sorry, in the real world it came earlier, but they're planning. I'm getting all mixed up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. So Sajua says no med pros were consulted for this show. Talking about the podcast or Alien Earth?
Can't we get a doctor to verify this surgery? Well, first of all, you'd have to have scrubs, and you'd have to.
I'd like to see the cast of Scrubs up against the Xenomorph. Jay Vasquez says, I'm here, so my apologies, but I've been listening to you guys for a while, and all I'm hearing are the same complaints being reiterated over and over again. Lol. I mean, hey, listen, I think it's fair, but these things need to be discussed. Having said that, I agree with many of the nets. However, the episode was
there you go.
Nits. However, the episode was so good. I was too busy enjoying it to be bothered by them, giving it some grace for a space horror slasher TV show a la Aliens. You know, I'm glad. One of the best episodes of this show, however, the show is not great, but good production design, cinematography.
You just gave it 7 out of 10. I don't understand anything you're saying.
Well, the 7 out of 10, let's see. Production design, cinematography, editing, vibe. So if that counts as like 1.5 points, maybe that adds up to 7 somehow, and then the other 3 are acting,
See, I would argue that's the
screenwriting.
price of entry for any kind of
7 out of 10 is low
or movie today.
7
no,
out of
I'm
10 is
saying the
good. I
production
mean,
design
yeah,
and
that's
good
what I was saying.
techniques for style. 7 out of 10 is a B. That's a B, isn't it?
It's like a B.
It's a C.
That's a solid B.
C plus.
We can't even agree on a rating system here. Sorry for all my talk to text typos. No worries. Hey, you're here. You're hanging out. And you're contributing.
JV.
That's what we care about.
Thank
Yeah,
you
thank you.
for
We appreciate
commenting,
you,
Jay.
Jay, even though I disagree with you. Sorry.
Yes,
I'm
Thank
with you.
Jay. Yes, so we'll continue to argue, but
7 out of 10 is low. All right.
You're
Well,
high.
no, it isn't. Anyway, not that low.
oh, speaking of which,
4 out of 10 is low.
I don't know if y'all saw this, but
Anything under 5 is low.
Spinal Tap. Has anyone looked at the Spinal Tap rating on IMDb?
The original movie?
Yes, from 1984.
I don't pay attention to IMDb ratings, but
You should. All I'm going to say is, everyone out there, do yourself a treat. Go look up the rating for Spinal Tap on IMDb and have a nice chuckle.
well, people
I
still
will
probably
look
think
at
it's
it
a
right
real
now.
band.
No, it's IMDb gets.
So
the
what
joke.
you're saying is they rated
Okay.
low. It was rated low back then. Now it's considered a classic.
No.
Oh.
6 is okay. 7,
No,
okay.
I'm not even going to
8.5, very
entertain.
good.
Go.
Okay, plus
5 out of 10 is a
No.
C.
Yeah.
5 out of 10. That's an F to me. That's 50%.
Then
that's
why
a
have
failing grade
0
where I went to school.
4?
Huh? I don't know. I give
5
ratings
out
out
of
of
10
the
is
old
not an
days-
F.
In the old days, 1 star was fair. No,
1 out of
1
10
star
is
was
an F.
4, 2 star was fair, 3 star was good, 4 star was great.
And
That's
don't
all
have
Siskel and
10.
Ebert. That's all Siskel and Ebert needed.
But these go up to 11. So what
Okay.
but
There
this
you
rating
go.
system goes up to 11.
So
So
what you're telling us is that IMDb
7
has
out
the
of
rating
11
for
is
Spinal
actually
Tap at 11. Is that what you're
That
Yeah.
saying?
movie comes out next
That's
week,
funny.
and there's been no press screenings for that. I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've seen the trailer, right? Anyway, that's my we're
Oh,
going
boy.
to all right, oh, hold on a second. Man.
Oh, really
We
quick
can't-
though. Oh.
Oh,
Okay, well, Katie, jump in with really quick.
I am seeing Alien next Saturday at Hollywood Cemetery in LA, and I'm very, very excited. I'm going to be wearing my I'm a Hugger shirt.
People are
Oh.
dying to get into that.
Yeah, they are, and I got it. So I get it, haha. But
Well,
yeah, so that's also one of the reasons why I want to be on the show. Like, I'm gonna see the real thing next weekend. So yay.
Well, while you're there, you can also hold a memorial service for the Alien franchise.
Well,
You could also visit the Jaws exhibit.
I'm planning on it. Yeah.
Nice.
A
right.
great Jerry Goldsman score in that first movie.
Jay says, thanks for covering the show. I'm glad it's getting all the attention. I'm in the minority, but I'm a huge Prometheus Covenant enthusiast, so hopefully that doesn't disqualify my opinions. No, opinions are opinions. As long as you can talk about why you hold those opinions, that's all we care about. So yeah, I still don't like Covenant really at all, but I've come to like things about Prometheus more than I don't.
Yeah.
But
I like Prometheus.
3 stars is a 7.5. Okay, we're done with the math. I'm praying for a conclusion to David's arc and the engineer's storyline.
Yeah, good luck with
Well,
that.
David Fowley is not going anywhere. He's here.
I'm still building my arc.
Okay.
I thought it was maybe talking about you being very arch.
Oh, no, but yeah. So yeah, that's the one thing that I am kind of disappointed in. Even though I didn't like Covenant,
Yep.
I was kind of curious. I loved the cliffhanger ending. It was very
Yeah.
spooky of David
supposed to
flying
have a
off into the
third.
with all those bodies and little embryos.
It's a beautiful looking film.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And both movies have good casts. It's just the writing.
How do you turn Billy Crudup into that? Anyway, but let's see. Good discussion. Build forearm strength to keep face huggers off your face.
Cat-like reflexes, right, Katie?
All right, and then Jay ends the comments out with womp lol. All right. Well, I think that we're going to leave it here.
I
Next
like
week
that
we'll be
guy.
back. Yeah, welcome, sir. Next week we'll be back 8:30 p.m. Central talking about Alien Earth episode 6, The Fly, whatever that might mean. In the meantime, I'd like to thank Earth's Mightiest Critics for hanging out and having a long and redundant, apparently, conversation about
These
episode 5.
30-minute episodes are killing me.
I know, right? Well, hey, we're finally at the triple multiplier. So I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Jeff York of the Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists. We have Katie Glidewell, the blonde in front, aka Xenoblonde. David Fowley of Keeping It Real. And of course, we had Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck hanging out before he had to go. And we really appreciate everybody hanging out in the comments and making this a very lively show.
We got a new subscriber.
Yes.
Oh, very nice, Jay. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thank you.
And
Thank
by
you,
the way,
Jay.
I think tomorrow we'll expect Sajiwe to rate this episode
Woo!
on a scale of 1 to 10.
Well, and we'll be back next week to see what the result of that was. But yeah, if you like this show, please like and be like Jay. Subscribe to the channel. Ring the
Yes.
bell for notifications. Kicking the Seat has a Patreon. All that information is down below, along with all of Earth's Mightiest Critics. We have a number of them represented tonight, but that's certainly not the entire roster. So be sure and support all of us. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much and take